The restaurant was glowing that evening. Soft music played beneath a warm chandelier glow, casting golden reflections on the marble floor. Waiters in black and white moved gracefully between tables. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like, and share this video. The kind of place where crystal glasses were placed before you even asked for water. In a quiet booth near the window, a modest family sat. Their clothes weren't designer, and their manners were slightly hesitant, as though trying to match the elegance of the room around them. It was clear they didn't belong here, not by society's standards. But they had a reason to celebrate. Their daughter had just graduated, the first in their family to do so. So tonight, they treated themselves to something rare, something special. They hadn't even finished looking through the menu when a well-dressed couple arrived. The man wore a tailored navy suit, the kind that whispered wealth, while his wife wore diamonds that sparkled even under the dim lights. They were followed by a sharply dressed older couple, his parents, clearly. They took the booth next to the modest family, and, almost immediately, began to notice them. The glances came first, then the whispers, the laughter, the mocking tones as they commented quietly at first on the clothes, the food choices, even the accents of the family next to them. The millionaire and his family seemed to revel in their superiority. The poor family tried to enjoy their evening, quietly shifting their focus to their daughter in the small celebration. They smiled through the tension, refusing to let the ridicule ruin the moment. But it wasn't easy. The comments stung. The laughter made them feel like imposters. Eventually, with dignity intact but hearts heavy, the family finished their meal and quietly left the restaurant. But they didn't leave without leaving something behind. When Bernard, the millionaire, returned from the restroom, he noticed their table was already cleared. The chairs had been pushed in. The table was wiped down. Odd, he thought. Then he asked for the bill. That simple question, so routine, so mundane, would be the moment that unraveled everything. The waitress returned with a strange look on her face, a smile, but not the warm kind, more like the kind that held a secret. She gently placed the folded bill on the table and tapped it with her fingers. "You won't need to pay tonight," she said. "The family next to you already covered it, but they left you a note." Bernard stared at her. What kind of game was this? He opened the bill. There was no charge, only a short handwritten note. "Don't forget where you came from, Bernard Campbell." For a moment, everything froze. Bernard blinked. Once, twice. His heart thudded. That name, Bernard Campbell, he hadn't heard it in years. In fact, no one was supposed to know it. Not here, not this family. He glanced at his parents, expecting amusement or confusion. Instead, his father's face had turned pale. His mother wouldn't meet his eyes. Bernard's mind raced. Who were those people? How did they know that name? And why did it feel like that note wasn't just a message, but a warning? Bernard's voice trembled as he looked at his father. "Dad, do you know them? Do you know the name Campbell?" His father's lips pressed into a thin line. His mother's eyes darted toward the floor. Silence thickened the air around them like fog. "I said," Bernard repeated, more firmly this time, "do you know them?" His father looked up, red-faced, and snapped, "Drop it!" But Bernard wouldn't, not this time. Something about the note rattled him more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't just the insult he was used to looking down on others, but the name, the message, the tone. It felt like a key to something hidden. Bernard turned to his mother. "What is going on? Why did they know my name?" "Not this name," he held up the note. "This name." She sighed, deep, tired, like someone carrying a secret for far too long. "Maybe," she whispered, "maybe it's time you knew." "What are you talking about?" Bernard asked, feeling a hollow pit open in his chest. "You're not our biological son." The words hit him like cold water. No warning, no softness, just the truth, thrown at him like a stone. "You were adopted," she continued quietly. "At birth. Your name, your original name, was Bernard Campbell." He stared at her, his mind flooded with questions. Anger, sadness. Who was he, really? Everything he knew, his identity, his roots, his story, wasn't his. And the people who raised him? The ones who laughed and mocked that poor family like it was sport? They'd hidden the biggest truth of his life from him. Bernard stood up. "You lied to me all these years. We gave you a life others couldn't," his father barked back. Bernard didn't care. He didn't want a life built on secrets and arrogance. Rage swelled in his chest. "I don't ever want to see you again," he said as he stormed out. But his father's reply wasn't a plea. It was ice cold. "Then you're cut off." The words stung, but Bernard didn't look back. He walked out of the restaurant into the night, his footsteps echoing on the pavement. It felt symbolic. The end of a chapter, maybe the end of everything. The next morning, Bernard checked his bank account. Empty. His father wasn't bluffing. Overnight, his accounts were frozen. Cards declined. His lifestyle gone in a blink. No more penthouse. No more luxury car. No more assistants, dinners, or gold watches. Panic set in. He called, messaged, begged, blocked, disowned. And for the first time in his life, Bernard was truly alone. He sold what little he could, moved into a one-room apartment in a part of town he'd once joked about. The couch was lumpy. The air smelled like mildew. The faucet leaked. But he had no other option. Days passed, weeks. His clothes, once ironed and elegant, now wrinkled. His hair unkempt, his eyes tired. The world didn't care that he used to be rich. Employers didn't care either. Every job interview ended with a polite shake of the head. No experience, no degree, no work ethic. Just a name that didn't matter anymore. Eventually, hunger led him to the food bank. He went in wearing a hoodie and a cap pulled low, trying to hide the face that once graced gala dinners and magazine pages. But then, Bernard? He froze. The voice came from behind. Feminine? Familiar? He turned slowly. A woman smiled at him from across the room. It was her, the woman from the restaurant, the one who had left the note. Bernard's heart pounded. Shame, confusion, anger. He walked toward her. "Who are you?" he demanded. "And how do you know my name?" She didn't flinch, didn't look surprised. Instead, she gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because," she said softly, "I'm your sister." Bernard blinked. "Sister?" The word felt foreign in his mouth, like it didn't belong there. Yet strangely, it did. She nodded, her eyes warm but damp. "My name's Angela. Angie to most. We were both adopted separately. You were just a baby when we were separated." Bernard stumbled back a step, like the air had been punched from his lungs. Angela didn't chase him. She just waited. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. You knew about me?" "Only recently," she admitted. "I always knew I was adopted, but I didn't know I had a brother until a few months ago. When I found out, I started looking. I asked my adoptive parents for pictures, records, anything. And then, somehow, fate led me to that restaurant." "That was fate?" Bernard asked bitterly. "You humiliated me, left me a note, like a slap to the face." Angela's smile didn't falter. "It wasn't meant to humiliate. It was meant to remind. Because I could see just from across that booth you weren't being the person you were meant to be." Bernard looked away. His throat tightened. "That person is gone." She shook her head. "No, he's just buried. Under shame, under pain. But not gone." They stood in silence. Angela reached into her bag and handed him a faded photo, two tiny babies swaddled in the same hospital blanket. Bernard stared at it. His hand trembled. "I don't remember this." "You wouldn't," she whispered. "You were only a few days old, but that's us." He clutched the photo like it might disappear. Angela smiled. "Come home with me. Meet your niece, your nephew. Share a meal. No silverware with gold handles, but it's real food, real love." He hesitated, but the weight of his loneliness finally cracked. "Okay." That night, Bernard sat at a modest wooden table while laughter and the smell of roasted vegetables filled the air. Angela's children clung to his arm. Her husband cracked dad jokes. The warmth in the room wasn't from expensive fixtures. It came from people who actually cared. And Bernard felt it. Love. Unconditional. Undeserved. But real. After dinner, Angela poured him a cup of tea and asked him gently, "What now?" "I need a job," he admitted. "Then come work with me," she smiled. "It's just a small fast food chain, but we need honest hands." Bernard looked down at his worn shoes. "You'd do that for me?" "Your family," she said simply. And so, the next morning, Bernard tied an apron behind his back, stood beside fryers and counters, and started a life he never thought he'd live. For the first time, he earned every dollar, every thank you, every smile. Weeks passed, then months. Bernard got better. He laughed more, slept better, dreamed bigger. Until one day, as he was wiping down a booth at the restaurant, a bell rang. He turned around and froze. It was them, his adoptive parents. They looked older, more tired, but still dressed in quiet wealth. They locked eyes with Bernard. He tensed, ready for scorn, mockery. But they approached slowly. His father's voice was hoarse. "We've been watching you, not in a creepy way, just curious. Your mother cried every night since you left." Bernard didn't know what to say. His mother stepped forward, tears already sliding down her cheeks. "We were wrong, about a lot of things, about family, about love." "You cut me off," Bernard said, voice trembling, "like I didn't matter." "We were angry," his father said. "But we were scared too, scared we'd lose the boy we raised. But it turns out maybe we never really had him, not the way he deserved." Bernard didn't speak until a small hand wrapped around his. Angela stood beside him, silent, steady. Bernard looked at her, then at the people who raised him, then back again. "Maybe," he finally said, "we can start over." It wasn't a grand reunion. There were no violin swells or thunderous applause. But it was real. And that night, Bernard sat at a table surrounded by two families. One that raised him, one that found him, and something inside him healed. He looked around, took a sip of tea, and smiled. He had no trust fund, no stocks, no Rolex. But he had something he never thought he'd find. Peace.